Yes, welcome everybody. Cannabis News. I'm your host, Joe Klare. It's September 25th, 2019. The show is always presented by the Marijuana Times. Find us at marijuanatimes.org. Click the video tab there to find this show. A lot of great articles there as well from a bunch of great writers. A lot of stuff going on today. We're talking about how much marijuana use is actually medical use. Also, a city and a territory in Australia has legalized recreational marijuana. And there was a massive historic vote in the House of Representatives just before I started recording this show. Is the Safe Banking Act, the marijuana banking bill. What happened? Well, I will tell you momentarily. All of that is up for discussion. But first, excuse me, Cannabis News is brought to you by NatureSide, nature-side.com, and their organic, all-natural pesticides. Grow safe and poison-free with NatureSide. Don't use harmful, awful, terrible pesticides and chemicals. Don't use banned pesticides. Be regulatory compliant in the state that you're growing. And all of these things are possible through the power of NatureSide. Nature-side.com, proud sponsor of Cannabis News. Thank you, NatureSide. First story by yours truly at marijuanatimes.org. How much marijuana use is medicinal? This is based on a study that was published not too long ago, recently, however you want to put it. They checked out 165,000 people throughout 2016 and 2017 to get a gauge on what reasons people were using marijuana. The study was published on the JAMA Open Network. 46% of the users who responded said they did so for medical reasons. Only 22% said they did so for recreational reasons. Some other interesting numbers. Over 75% of all users say their primary ingestion method is smoking marijuana, and also 25% of 18 to 24-year-olds use medical cannabis. All interesting things, interesting numbers. All that's great. If you want to voluntarily give information about your marijuana use for research purposes or studies or whatever, that's fine. Please do so. It's no one's business. It doesn't matter. As I point out in the article, the thing I have a problem with is the notion only certain reasons are valid for using medical marijuana. This is very much the I'm only for medical marijuana crowd, as opposed to I'm for cannabis legalization overall crowd. There's a lot of people out there who are just for medical marijuana, and they draw the line in recreational marijuana. Hopefully someday, if you're an adult, it won't matter what the reason is, because the reason, as I said, is no one's business. It doesn't matter. Whatever reason you have for cannabis, you should be able to use cannabis because you're not infringing on the rights of anyone else. You don't have to have a certain reason. One person's reason for using cannabis is not better than another person's reason. I understand if you're sick and you feel like you deserve it more than other people, but you really don't. Everyone deserves it equally and to the full extent. Whatever your reasoning for it is, you deserve to have access to it just because you're not infringing on the rights of anyone else. You're not bothering anyone else. You're not creating victims of anyone else with your marijuana use or selling or growing or whatever. Therefore, you're not a criminal. But again, if you voluntarily want to give up this information, that's great. I run polls sometimes on Twitter. How you smoke bowls, do you smoke bongs, you smoke blunts, whatever. It's interesting if it's voluntary. But if you're going to use these numbers to say, well, that 22%, they're only using it for recreational reasons, and they're wrong. No, they're not. They're fine. Those 22% have just as much reason to use marijuana and just have as much right to use marijuana as the 46% who use it for medical reasons. Is my point. This next story from CNN. Little international story. Canberra becomes the first city in Australia to legalize marijuana. That's right, you heard me correctly. The Australian capital, Canberra, will become the country's first city to legalize marijuana following a landmark vote Tuesday night. Lawmakers in the Australian Capital Territory voted to pass a bill allowing people aged 18 and over to possess and cultivate marijuana for personal use. The new law was set to come into effect on January 31st, 2020. Under the new regulations, residents in the territory, which is home to the capital, will be able to legally possess up to 50 grams of cannabis, which is 1.76 ounces, and cultivate up to 2 plants per person or 4 per household. The change makes the Australian Capital Territory, the ACT, the first of Australia's 6 states and 2 main territories to legalize marijuana for personal use. ACT's new law, however, does conflict with national drug laws enacted by Australia's parliament, which prohibit the possession of marijuana It could be possible for those federal laws to override ACT's new law, the Australian Capital Territory's new law, which would be unfortunate, but momentum in Australia and legalization, wherever it happens, is a good thing. Throw another shrimp on the Barbie. I was going to attempt an Australian accent, but I thought just saying that was embarrassing enough. It would have been doubly embarrassing to say it in an Australian accent, so I will refrain, as I pointed out. Right before this show, I was checking out C-SPAN, actually this feed on Facebook, for the vote on H.R. 1595, the Safe Banking Act, which was supposed to get a vote yesterday. I guess it was pushed to today. Finally got a vote today, and drum roll, please. I don't have drum roll. I don't have sound effects. It passed. Pretend there was a drum roll in your head. There you see the vote if you're watching the video version of the show. With 10 not voting. I don't know if those final 10, they were taking forever. So I just took the screenshot and moved on with my life. I don't know if those last 10 finally straggled in to vote. It was like a 30-minute vote. I don't know where they were. The time remaining there, you see 0. It was 0 for a long time before the votes finally stopped coming in. So I called it. So if these vote totals are wrong, that's not my fault. That some people in the House of Representatives are very slow to vote, which is supposedly the thing that they do and the reason they are there. According to these numbers, with 10 not voting, 321 said yes, 103 said no, 1 Democrat saying no, 229 Democrats voting in the affirmative, 91 Republicans also voting for the bill, as did the 1 independent. For 321, as I said, saying yay. Under normal rules of the House, they would only need 218 votes for this bill to pass. They were under a suspension of the rules, as you can see there. And as we talked about before on this show, which means that they would need 290 votes to pass the bill. Of course, they got 321. At the very least, they may have more than 321 now. The final vote total may be more than 321. As I said, I couldn't wait any longer for those last 10 representatives to maybe come in and bother voting. It passed. I had to record this show. So as I said, I moved on with my life. But at least 321 votes for H.R. 1595. From here, I guess we'll go to the Senate. The Senate Banking Committee Chairman has said that he will have a hearing on it. We'll see what happens in the House. I guess next up is the big push for the MORE Act, which is a more comprehensive marijuana law reform on a federal level, descheduling, things of that nature. That'll be next, I guess, on the agenda, next to push for. But this is a victory for marijuana law reform, allowing, it would allow, if it makes it all the way through to the president's desk and becomes law and such, allowing marijuana businesses easier access, allowing banks and credit unions, obviously, are actually letting them better be able to serve marijuana businesses, giving them protections from federal law when it comes to serving marijuana businesses, which is still federally illegal. Obviously, the MORE Act would address that. So get a hold of your representatives wherever you live in the United States, if you live in the United States. We'll go to the Senate. We'll see what happens there. We'll continue to cover that and all other things that are going on in the world of cannabis right here on Cannabis News 5 days a week. Check us out on marijuanatimes.org. Thank you to NatureSide, nature-side.com, and their organic all-natural pesticides for being a great sponsor of the show. Make sure you subscribe to the Marijuana Times on YouTube. Almost 2,500 subscribers now. That is awesome. Click the little notification bell so you know when a new episode of Cannabis News has dropped. You can also find the audio version of the show on Apple Podcasts. You can search us there. Thanks, everybody, for watching and listening today, and we will see you next time right here on Cannabis News.